How are you?
Would you pass that over to Debbie?
Debbie?
Please?
Passing notes.
Yeah, we're passing notes. Okay.
Debbie doesn't allow this kind of behavior. No,
I can't even read it, what's it say?
Oh my goodness. Oh, Carl's not here today?
Carl's not. He's here.
I'd like to call this meeting of Timberville Town Council order December 8th, 2022. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, like we always do, everyone received their packet and it had a copy of several things in it. The first one is the minutes from November 10th. Anybody have any questions or changes, amendments to the minutes that we need to take care of right now? Okay, I need a motion to approve, please. Second.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Clarence. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Debbie. We'll go around the room.
Yes.
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 Awesome. You also have a copy of the treasurer's report. And did you tell me there was a small correction?
Yeah, the ARPA funds that has been spent to date, $8,600 is gonna get added back to that.
They donated their time. The officers had bought some toys for some of the kids above and beyond what the gift cards were. One of them bought a kid a bicycle, bought a kid video game out of their pocket. So, yeah, it's a really good program. You wish you could do more, but we only have so many resources, in a small town, so we can only work with so many kids. But it's a great program on a lot of levels. Steve Knight, who left us, I mentioned in the police committee meeting, but he said when he worked on the east end of the county, in a lot of those communities, the kids were unfriendly towards the deputies or police officers. And he said something he noticed when he came here to work was that most of the kids in town are quick to wave. They see us at the school, they're waving from the school bus, and they generally seem to be kind of happy to see us. So always good to work with them. The pre-K class came over to Walmart as a group, and I missed that because I had a meeting I had to be in, but Sergeant Cook went over there with that. So they brought a whole herd of very little ones over there to buy some stuff for one of the local nursing homes for a donation program they were doing. So there's a lot of activity at that little elementary school, wasn't there? I guess the last thing is part of our vision statement. It has to do with being a professional police department and continuing with training and education, that kind of thing. And we added something into our yearly training that we haven't been doing, and that's driver training. So we generally get it in the academy, and then most departments don't touch on it again. There's some larger departments that do. But because all the town chiefs work together to coordinate this, and driving is a very big liability issue. We had a vehicle totaled in a crash recently, and we reviewed that. Officer actions were completely reasonable in that, but there is a lot of risk to the officer, to the equipment. There's liability risk, so that's something that we agreed to add, and we did a half a day of emergency vehicle operation training this year, and the training cooperative has agreed to keep that as an annual thing. So I'm sure our insurance company will be happy about that. That's all I have.
I got just two things to add. Trinity, thanks everyone for inviting them. They really enjoyed the Shot with the Hero. We invited them down and they did bingo for the kids and the parents while the other children shopped. So they had a blast, and the guy who plays Ralphie won a hoverboard. I don't even know his name because they were calling Ralphie because he said he plays Ralphie for the play at J. Frank, I think is where it was. But and just an update for the people who weren't at the Chief gave a little impromptu tour down there, and if I think Ned might have missed it. if you wanna see how the PD's going, we got paint to do yet and a few small things, but, thanks to Chris's and his group's hard work and the chief and Strickler Carpeting who donated, they worked till 2 in the morning and, if you remember, we had budgeted 56.5. When we got new contractors, it was like 210 and 105 or something, so we decided we'd contracted out ourselves, or whatever word you use, project manager ourselves, and now I think we'll probably be closer to the 50-ish mark. And so we're probably gonna be a couple thousand under your very original budget and far under half of the one and quarter of the other. So everybody worked very hard, and I think it looks great. I think it's just amazing. It's bigger, a lot bigger. But everyone's done a great job, and all of Chris's guys and your guys, and it's just fantastic to see what we can do. So.
I would add one thing to your comments about them playing bingo. I think I put this in an email, one of the monthly emails. Well, Walmart very generously donated about 3 pallets of toys to us, a couple months ago? And so the public works guys and I went over and loaded on trucks and brought it over here in the front office. Staff helped unload it and sort it in the basement. And so we've been using it for things like, we did a little bit of trunk or treat Halloween time. They did a Facebook, the drawing or the coloring. They used some of those toys for bingo for the family members that were waiting for their kids to do the shopping. So it's been something that, at first when they asked me, I'm like, that's great, and I appreciate it, but what are we gonna do with all this? And so the front office staff has been really creative about ways to use that to touch a lot of different kids in the community. So very generous of Walmart, very creative of the front office on ways that they're utilizing that to give a lot of kids a chance to get, and so much cool stuff. That one was like $120 or $150 hoverboard that the kid wanted in bingo.
Yeah.
I didn't win that game.
I'm glad I didn't. I don't need to be on such a thing. Okay. Any questions for Chief? Then we'll move to Public Works. AC, you want to do? What do you want to do first?
Let's Chris is here. Chris wanted to speak for about half an hour or so, so we'll let him go first.
Put the camera on and zoom it in.
I won't hold you up that long, but start with, this is Trenton Knight. He's our new maintenance man. So I asked him to come tonight, so welcome him aboard.
Let me interrupt before you get going.
He's,
Tell us what you did on your first day here. Was it your first day or second day?
second day.
Tell them what you did.
We had a nice water leak.
And all of them were knee deep, soaking wet in the winter on his second day, and he came back.
Yeah.
Amazing.
He's been with us 3 weeks. 3 weeks, this is the 3rd week, so fitting in real well. And like I said, I guess the first day we started looking for that leak, and then went back the next morning and started him off well there. So again, welcome him aboard, and we'll hopefully he sticks around with us for a while. And I told him one day he'd appreciate the job. If he's really had a hard job where he had to really bust his butt all day long, he'd appreciate our work. So sometimes it's not as you get to do a lot of different things. That's one of the good things about it. So, but anyway, what I wanted to come here tonight for was I talked to AC. Obviously we've had 2 major water leaks in the month of November, which is kind of unheard of really for us. We'll have 3 this month, but anyway.
Now that you've mentioned it.
So yeah, now that I say something about it. But what really got this all going is some of the comments on the social media stuff. We tend to shy away from them, but at some point through the week, after the water leak, we tend to go back and look at some of these things. So I just wanted to give you guys a timeline of how things transpired on the 10-inch leak, and then work up to the 6-inch leak. And I won't take up a lot of time. But at this point, it looks like we've lost about 1.5 million gallons of water in that time frame. These 2 leaks. One, some time spending looking for the leak, and then the 2 leaks that actually happened. And I don't have true figures. we're just kind of guessing. I mean, if you remember, the day, it was, November 9th into the 10th. It actually started on the 9th of November at about 9 o'clock. And we can tell that by our SCADA system that we put in. Unfortunately, that day it was down. It went down sometime through the day. So we didn't get a lot of alarms that we probably should have gotten that night. So it kind of drug on like the old days. You know, we didn't have any way of really telling that we were losing water until except by just looking at tanks, and I was using them twice a day. So anyway, those problems, we're working on them with Valley Automation, who installed it, and trying to get some backups and all that good stuff. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. But again, it appears after the system came back up that this leak started about 9 o'clock at night, underground where nobody could see it. About 2 weeks prior to that, we could see some things going on. It's kind of cool to sit and watch our computer sometimes, but we could actually see that we were losing some water somewhere. So again, 9 o'clock on the 9th appears when the leak started. About 3 o'clock is when we first got the notifications, 3 a.m. in the morning, that we were starting to excuse me, get some notifications that there was a problem. I think Nathan got some calls. Maybe you actually were involved. I think everybody was a little bit involved in the leak. All the departments were a little bit involved with some phone calls and some stuff like that. It seemed like we had some communication breakdowns. The sheriff's office was there. Nobody could figure out how to get a hold of anybody, which was a little bit concerning to me, but any other time we have a problem, it seems like it goes very well. The answering service did eventually get a hold of it, and started contacting the proper people. Unfortunately, I was at my cabin where I don't have cell service, so I really didn't know anything was going on until the guys started calling out. I always leave them the number so they know where I'm at if they need something. So one of them called me sometime that night, or sometime after 3 o'clock. And so anyway, from about 3 o'clock, like I said, it showed up about 3 o'clock, best we could tell. Water started coming up through the ground. By that time, we'd lost a good bit of water. And it looked like a lake down Main Street there in front of the old Mason Motor. So it was actually coming up on both sides of the road, and then it was flooding the field to the, I guess, the west, east there. So it was kind of a big lake down Main Street. When I come off Orchard Drive there, it was, I'm like, man, this is going to be bad. And it turned out to be bad. I mean, I think the first time in history that we lost a whole tank of water before we could figure out what was really going on. And that, again, was about 4 o'clock when we figured out that, hey, we've lost a tank of water here. The good thing, when I got to town, it took me a little bit of time to get here. The guys had already started making preparations. They had already shut some valves down, and were pretty much had the leak isolated, which they thought was on the 6-inch, ended up being on the 10-inch. So we had to close some more valves later. But the one good thing was that we were able to isolate the line from the tank, from the spring tank, so that we could keep water in that tank. And we lost a good bit of water in that tank too. We were down to about 17 feet left in that tank. Again, probably just about 600,000 or a little bit more in just that leak alone that we lost in 8 hours time. So anyway, the time frame was about 3:30 to 4 o'clock again. We figured out that the tank was almost empty. So they were closing valves and containing the leak. And around 4 to 5 o'clock, and I know I'm off on some of these times on AC, but I'm just trying to remember back when things were what was happening. Sometime in that time frame, I sent Derek to start looking at tank levels, because at that point we really didn't know how much water we'd lost. He called me back and said, "Hey, the one tank's empty." So that was nice. So I sent him to start the filter plant so that we'd have water, at least while we were fixing the leak. The filter plant would be running and putting water into that tank at least. Somewhere in that time frame, again, the 4 to 5 o'clock, I notified Harrisonburg Rockingham ECC to advise them of our situation. that there would be no water in the fire hydrant system in the town of Timberville until further notice, and I told them to take appropriate action, which I hope they did. We didn't
I got a
find
call,
out.
I got a call from Tyler, so
Okay, so
they did.
anyway, they were notified, that we didn't have any water, you know, we weren't gonna be able to supply any fire suppression, apparatus. So, at that point, somewhere along the line, I started, notifying, I called Don, Mayor, AC, Melinda, we started making phone calls. If nothing else, it was just, well, these two guys, I really thank you guys for showing up and helping out and not being afraid to pick up a shovel and help us out too. But for me, it was more of what I want to say, public relations, because I thought it was going to be, you know, worse than what it was. You know, when you get a call and say the tank's empty, that's a big deal for us, because we usually always have a tank full, or most of the tanks are full. So that was more public relations, just to kind of get things going, get some Facebook, social media things going, because by that time we were starting to get phone calls and emails to our email system, and people were starting to actually call and say, hey, we don't have any pressure, we don't have any water, and okay, so at that point, you know, we started working on the leak, or started at least shutting valves down and getting things secured. And it takes a little while to get organized, because at that point now we have to start. We figured out what's going on. We shut valves down and containing the leak. So now we got to start loading equipment, picking up supplies, whatever things that we think we may need to get out there to fix it. So that takes a little time. It's amazing to me sometimes how long these things take, but it takes a little time to get organized. Pick up what you need. Again, we've got a lot of stuff on the trailer, teams and stuff like that. So again, that took up pretty quick in getting traffic diverted. And we were in a great place for a water leak in the town, because we didn't have to do any traffic control. We just done a little quick detour, which worked out really well. Again, that was a 4 to 5 o'clock time frame that stuff was you know, taking part. In the morning, and we still hadn't even started working on the leak yet. We're sitting, like I said, to get the filter plant started up so that we could start producing some water. The well was running at that time as hard as it could go. Somewhere in the 6 o'clock hour, I think that's when we finally got in contact. It was probably in the 5:30 hour. We got a hold of the water co-op and started using some of their water. Again, I think in a short amount of time, if you were out of, or if you were really low in pressure, I don't think you were out. They were low too long, from what I'm hearing. Again, once we got the leak contained, we could start getting water back into the system, getting pressures back up was really what we were. We had water. I think we just didn't have a lot of pressure in the system. So somewhere around, like I said, that time frame, we were working on getting our system back up and getting things going. And then again, once we found out it was on the 10-inch line, we could shut the 10-inch line down from Orchard Drive to now Community Circle with the valves that we put in to do the townhouse project on Community Circle. So we had a short section of line that was out of service. And then at that point, we could open up the filter plant, or the tank from the Orchard Drive valves to start bringing water in from the tank on Sparman, or on Andrew Mill Road. So again, that really helped too, because when we were getting really basically getting everybody back into water, or getting the pressures back up. So that was all about 7 o'clock, somewhere around in there, 6 to 7 o'clock. We received a visitor and again, at 5 o'clock hour that you never think about, and I kind of didn't think about it at the time, but it was from the county school system. Wanting to know what was going on and if they were going to be able to have school. And at that point, we just really couldn't tell what was going to happen, because again, we really weren't sure where we were going to be when the leak got fixed and where we were going to be with water. So they made a decision to close, which probably in the scheme of things probably helped out a little bit with the water usage. That we didn't have that big water user at that point in time. So, but anyway, again, about 7 o'clock at this point we started excavating the road. So we're 3 hours in from the first time we were notified. Probably a little bit before that we were excavating, because it was still dark when the guys started sawing the road. You got to saw the asphalt, make a big hole or make a big square. put the asphalt before you can ever start digging. It just minimizes how much asphalt you gotta tear up, so. That was probably before 7 o'clock, because I know it was still dark, so the machine started getting there, started excavating the road in and around about 7 o'clock, somewhere around in there. Sometime after that, sometime after 7 o'clock, probably in the 8 o'clock range, and I'm guessing that you guys can remember, we actually found the leak. It was probably more closer to 9 o'clock. We found what was going on, and it ended up being a 10-inch array. The 10-inch line was broke, but it was about a 5-inch piece of pipe that was cracked this way, parallel.
5 foot piece.
5 feet, what did I say? I'm
5
sorry.
inch.
5
Five-
foot,
five foot,
about a 5 foot
foot,
section of
yeah.
pipe that was cracked. So it had to be actually physically cut out and a new piece put in, and two couplings installed. So Dawn, and at some point, Dawn and Derek, I think, went and cut us a new piece of pipe from our stockpile, and brought it over. And then we had to cut the pipe out and put this new section in. And again, once that was done, we tightened up all the couplings and started filling that line too. So somewhere in all this, the road was reopened. We got the ditch full. The road was open, but it's about 1 o'clock now, if in the time frame, and that's when we got finished. We were finished. We were done. We cleaned up everything. So again, when I say we had a water leak, we had a water leak, but some of these water leaks, the last one on Main Street in the same area lasted about, we were there about 15 hours or
Something like that,
That was a little
yeah.
different situation, but when I say we had a water leak, some of these water leaks go on for 10 hours or more. It's just not a couple-hour job, and we work pretty hard to try to keep everybody in water and keep things flowing. So, and one thing I wanted to tell you too, in some of the Facebook comments that I looked at, some of them were comments about spending the ARPA money and stuff like that. And there was a couple about giving them free water bills, and there was a nice little graph on that one page, a graph and a chart of from 2011 comparing us to Broadway with water loss, and I thought it was real convenient when it was 12 years old at the time. So, and, a lot of the social media stuff I read was really irrelevant to what was going on. But with Derek and I going to Roanoke to the Virginia World Water Conference every year, what I wanted to tell you really is when I hear comments like that of our system is out of date, it's bad, pipe's bad, we are right in line with everybody else in the state of Virginia and a lot of people around the country, as everybody struggles with the same problems, but we're right in line with everybody else. Our system, there's nothing wrong with our system. The pipe's been in the ground, it works fine, and we're just like everybody else. Nobody has enough money for infrastructure repairs and upgrades, and that's just the way it is. And a lot of the people that get on social media and maybe down the towns or the communities that they live in really don't understand what it costs to keep up with the systems, the water and sewer systems that we have. So just one thing I wanted to say is, we've done a lot since 2005, since I came aboard. AC was here, a little bit before that. We've accomplished a whole lot with the taxpayers' money, and I think we'll continue on that road to upgrades and stuff like that. But I just wanted to let you know, we're in pretty good shape with our water system, with our water lines and stuff like that. There is an aging line from the filter plant to town that's going to have to be addressed sooner than later. I think AC's already started working on maybe some grants or something with that. And we've already started talking about another water system, which needs to happen sooner than later too. And again, that's already in the process. We've got the engineer's hands and they're looking into that and looking at that. So it's just we keep going, keep moving ahead, and keep going the direction we're going in. And we'll always have water leaks. So they're not going to go away. Anything man-made is going to break. Your dishwasher breaks, your washing machine breaks, water lines are going to break. And just got to get people to understand that sometimes. And one of the worst things, you can take a lot of things away from people. You start taking their water away from them, and they get a little agitated, so, and I guess that's what brings on some of the negative comments about the water systems and stuff like that, which,
And what people don't realize, we have 23 miles, is that right?
Yeah.
23 miles of water line.
yeah, and it's easy to say, well, how can you replace
Yeah,
it?
here to
The tax burden on the citizens
Yeah.
is why we haven't replaced lines that are, were just put in the 1960s.
Well,
So,
and I gave that information out to council not long ago about the water rates, that ours are, you
Yeah.
know, close to the lowest in the area as far as towns go.
Right.
So,
So, so that leak's over with, 1 o'clock we're cleaning up, everybody's going back to, doing their normal things. And, at that point, we've got the spring running, producing water, we have the well producing water, to try to fill this empty tank out there. And correct me if I'm wrong about it, the next day, we were almost back to normal, right?
we had gained from the time that the leak was repaired. You texted me that we had gained 3 feet at like around 4:45.
Yeah.
And then by the next morning, we had gained 20 feet at that point. And so each foot is about 6,000 gallons, I think. So we gained about 120,000 gallons from that afternoon to the next morning, which I felt was a really good recharge
Yeah.
time or recharge rate for that short amount of time.
So, from that point, the next day, like I said, we were in pretty good shape. At that point, I think everybody was okay, not a big deal. We had water to do what we needed to do if there was a fire or anything like that. So I don't think that was a problem. But going into Sunday, which would have been, this leak was on Wednesday?
Thursday.
Thursday before, yeah.
Is that the one before council meeting?
No.
Or was that
This
was
one
the
was on
other,
Thursday.
that was the
Okay,
6th.
10 inch was on Thursday, so we went through the weekend. Sunday, we're looking pretty good, tanks are full, and the spring cuts off. So when the spring cut off, we started noticing a pretty quick drop in the water again. So, we watched it a little bit. Again, I was on vacation, in and out. So on November 21st, I guess, that's when we noticed, if I got my days right, about 3 o'clock, that whole day we spent looking for another water leak, because at this point it was obvious that this leak had gotten bad. So we originally thought our 10-inch leak was the problem where we were losing water before, but now it looks like it might have been a 6-inch line on Orchard Drive that was leaking. And then we brought all the pressures back up and filled the tanks when we found it the week before. Again, it was a pretty bad leak, but again, in 2 to 3 hours, we had that one excavated and repaired, and everything was back to normal, other than we got pretty wet trying to cut a pipe full of water, so that was kind of interesting. 40-degree day with 40-degree water hitting. That was kind of cool.
I've got a film.
It was refreshing if nothing else, so.
I got a video of it.
So at this point, it looks like everything's back to normal, and we can all sleep better at night. And I guess Don talks about losing sleep about things, so I told him before, so you gotta quit losing sleep over this kind of stuff, because it'll kill you. I guess I've lost sleep over that. What happened. Losing that much water and being in a situation where we're not sure what the next hour's gonna bring. So, but anyway, it was handled, and everybody worked good together. Again, it was the first leak was an all hands for all the departments seemed to have a little bit in it. So everything kind of went pretty well there after we figured out what was going on. But so again, I just want to say, since I've been on water source and addressing the 6-inch line that's coming to town, that's on a water source that's not 100% reliable like it used to be. So anyway, that's all I got to say, and thank you for a few minutes of your time. Like I said, I just wanted to let everybody give everybody a kind of a time frame of what goes on when we do have a leak that magnitude. So.
Chris, I'm not on Facebook, but did you get any positive
Oh yeah,
comments?
there's tons
Okay,
of positive. I'm sorry,
okay,
I didn't
good.
even bring the positive.
No,
There's
but-
tons of positive.
Good.
But, it's just a few. And the best thing you can do is just not even look. But
I know.
those things you gotta
That's
do.
why I'm not on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'd say it's overwhelmingly positive.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
Good.
Absolutely.
there's still negative. And to some of the things Chris was talking about is we have all these backups in place, and it's nice when it happens in the backups, you get to test what we're doing. Like turn it on, I don't remember last time we turned on Pilgrims, the water plant over here at Wild Hill. and turned that on, and it just, everything started coming back up, and it worked great. So, you know, it tested you guys, of course, like it always does.
Sure,
but,
yeah, and we learned a lot. Believe me, we learned a lot about our system and what we can do and things that went on that night. So I think it's a big learning experience for us who have been here. Derek's come on before I did too, so he's been here 18 years too. It's just some things we've never seen before happen, so it was good to see. I guess it's good to have that once in a while to keep everybody fresh and you learn, again, we learned a whole lot that night from the system and how everything performs. So.
And it's something to see a person cutting a 6-inch line and still has pressure on it too. That's a heck of a sprinkler going on right there.
When you mix the co-op water, you can really tell because it's soft.
Yeah.
And it's cloudy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's wet.
That's exactly
You can flush
right.
toilets and take showers.
And there was some comments about cloudy water the next couple of days, and you know, the best thing we can tell them is just let it run, it'll settle
Really?
out, but,
Yeah.
it's safe. It
But
was
super
safe.
soft.
Yeah, it was safe, I drank it myself and looked at it and had it in the glass and all that, so.
And we're
Most of it's air, so.
I think we're required to go back and retest after and all that, didn't we?
Yeah, so
We
we
did some sampling.
contacted the health department. We never had that much loss before,
Right.
at least since we've been here, and so we were wondering if we needed to do a boil water advisory or anything like that. So we were in touch with the health department. And they said, given the situation and the way things occurred, they didn't feel that a boil water advisory was necessary. As long as we went and got some back T samples, checked our residual chlorines, and all that stuff came back in good shape.
Yeah, the next
And,
day, so.
Yeah, the next day.
It was actually,
And-
Friday was a holiday, right?
Yeah, so Derek and Nathan went out on Friday, that holiday, and
They came back on Saturday, we had the results back on Saturday, so.
yeah.
The next day, so.
Great job.
Well,
So
you
it's
gotta
a-
do a great job.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, I was
Super
impressed, because at 4:30 in the morning when I got up and there was no water, and I looked out my front window, the lights were already on down on the shop, the trucks were in and out, and it
Yeah.
just, when most of the people probably once commenting on
It's,
Facebook were probably still in bed
Yeah,
sleeping.
yeah, it's
You
a,
all were already up and on the job.
yeah,
It was
it's
very
an
impressive.
undertaking getting everything, you know, going and getting equipment loaded and stuff like that, so we spread out and had, you know, a couple people here and there doing jobs, so it all worked out pretty good. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you. Okay, everyone received Chris's other report. This month is monthly report. Any questions for Chris since we have him here? Some of it's what he talked about today. You got something, so you take it from here? You got some stuff and then a lot line? or
So
what do
we'll
you have?
do the lot line first. I think everything else is elsewhere in the agenda.
Okay.
I put most of the stuff in the, working on the other stuff. So yeah, we'll look at the lot line. I put a copy of it at everybody's place there. So we had a request from Betty Ritchie to do a lot line revision. She wants to sell part of her property, the part that's labeled parcel A, to Carter Ritchie. And so basically it's just swinging the Carter's back lot line around to cut it off, and that will be added to his property. And the planning commission has reviewed this and they recommend approval to the town council. It's really, I mean, it doesn't create any nonconformities. And that back, I think I put that in the middle, the back part of that lot is really, you can't use it for anything because it doesn't have road frontage. So, does anybody have any questions on the lot line revision?
Okay.
So if not, we'll just need a motion from council to approve that.
Motion to approve the lot line revision?
Thank you, Natalie. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, go around.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. And you said everything else is,
Elsewhere on the agenda.
okay, so we'll jump down to business and industry. You wanna go over this yard sale permits and your recommendation on that kind of thing?
Sure. Had a council member ask about the, currently the way it's set up, we have, the ordinance reads that we're required to get permits for yard sales. You're allowed to have a maximum of 10 per year, but after the first 2, it's $10 per yard sale. We haven't had hardly anything as far as activity goes in that. Honestly, the recommendation that I was talking to staff this morning, and the recommendation we would have is just to get rid of the permitting part of it. We can keep, nobody monitors it now, and so if we start getting complaints about somebody having too many yard sales, we just address it as an operation of a business. And we can make documentation from that point on. So honestly, I'd rather just see, we can keep on the books that if you have more than 10 per year, that's the maximum you could have. But as far as requiring somebody to get a permit, it's monotonous work that, like I said, most people don't have even have the 2 a year. So just to kind of streamline things and get rid of that would be my staff's recommendation would be to remove the permit requirement part of that and leave the rest of it in place.
And then, because I'm trying to remember back when it came into place, and I think we just had, it was for a select few that were having something like every weekend or whatever,
Right.
every day.
And we ended up addressing those as operating the business.
So we can still handle that and take care of that without this.
Well, it becomes a zoning issue because then they're operating, it's a business use in a residential area usually, plus they don't have a business license, and they're not paying taxes, there's a lot of ways you can address those.
Yeah.
So my question is the request because the $10 permit fee is a financial hardship? Is that what the request is about, to get rid of that for? I don't really see the need for having to do this at all, but what's the reason for dropping the?
I think it was just
discounting?
for anybody who was who was over 65 that if they wanted to have more than 2 yard sales, it would just cut back on the cost to them.
And I think it's kind of changed into, why are we having people go through this process and is it needed anymore?
Right.
It started out as the one thing, but now the question is, do we really even,
Need to have a permit, you mean?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
is there a need,
Is there a purpose for the permit? Is
Yeah,
it-
Yeah.
I mean, you have, when I think, I asked you, Melinda, and you said it's fairly rare that, when,
People even have more than 2.
right, so is there a need to have the citizens come in, get one, and have the ladies fill it out in front office, and when I guess the question is, it's still serving a purpose, and Quentin just said, the purpose was originally so we couldn't have people having a yard sale business all day in their front yard all summer long. And now there's another way to deal with it besides this way, so I guess the question is, first of all, do we need it? Second of all, if we do need it, do we maybe change it $10 or whatever?
And honestly, the people that were doing it the ordinance wasn't a deterrent anyway for the people who were doing it every week anyway. So we were always addressing it through some other method anyway.
Council?
What's the difference between a yard sale and selling something in your yard? Whether you put a bicycle out or a lawnmower with a for sale sign on it, or a set of tires or a set of rims?
Legally, none.
I guess legally none, but I've never looked at, I personally think a yard sale's set up a bunch of tables, but yeah, I can see what you're saying, someone put a bike out there
And we've addressed some of those issues at different locations in town before where it's,
The
Can-
regulars.
yeah, right, exactly.
It's a good point.
And we can still, that still falls under, that doesn't fall under the yard sale part anyway. It would still fall under the conducting business or operating a business out of their home type thing. So we can still address those issues through our normal avenue that doesn't have anything to do with the yard sale permits. So,
If the council wants to get rid of it, we would have to prepare an ordinance amendment. It would have to be presented at the next council meeting to basically remove that ordinance, because we'd have to read it and then amend it with a vote.
I don't know.
I don't really see the need to have the permits, as long as we can address it other ways.
We'll make a motion, let's see where it goes, and we'll go from there.
Then I'll make a motion that we do away with the permit requirement.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Oh, we're changing the ordinance then?
We're eliminating that, we're eliminating.
We'll have to
Oh,
present it.
you'll have to change it.
So if you vote that that's what you wanna do, then we'll prepare the ordinance amendment, we'll bring it next session, so you'll have to read the actual change
So
and
we're
then
doing
vote
it
on
in
it.
effect until,
Yeah.
Correct. It won't be in effect until after the January.
We're voting to have Quentin do something.
Yeah. Mostly AC.
Mostly AC. Mostly AC do something. Okay, all in favor of basically eliminating the permit requirement? Are you penning something, or one of you penning something to eliminate the permit?
Is it for, we're eliminating it, period, or just for individuals 65 and older?
Period.
Period.
Period. And because,
And that's the whole point of, it's just kind of getting your sentiment of what you want us to do. So then we'll prepare the actual ordinance, which will be presented, and then at the next meeting, you can change the language however you want to change it, you know, because as long as there's a motion in a second, you could change it however you want to change it. But this is just kind of giving us the directive that you want us to prepare it so that it can be presented.
and that's what we've talked about before, you guys don't do anything without the council. You don't do it for
Direction.
one council, you do it for the council's, direction.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, to eliminate it, or him prepare it, wording.
For council to consider.
There you go, that's good,
That's right.
that's good, okay.
yes.
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 Okay. I didn't do a good job explaining it, but we'll explain it to you next week, or next month. Is that it for business and industry? Is our business next door still?
I haven't heard anything different. Have y'all heard anything different? The date, so as far as we know, the date is still December 12th, which is Monday. They were over painting today, painting the outside of the building. So, and they've been doing some, it's like a beehive over there.
Okay.
So,
Okay, Parks and Rec. I guess, we have, is it this Saturday and Sunday? We have the Winter Festival coming, and is it 12 to 6 on Saturday and 5 on Sunday?
with the tree lighting at 5 o'clock on Saturday evening.
And we're gonna have, I think it was 40 vendors, 5 or so food type vendors, a band, and a petting zoo on Sunday. So there's a lot gonna be going on down there, and I'm sure it's gonna be a busy place, so get here early.
Yeah, exactly.
Get here early, but no, it's fantastic, and Chris's, I'll mention Chris's guys again, they came in and now we have a walk path around the whole building, and it's now geared to where we can have 40 different vendors, so it's amazing, went from just right at 20 last year to double it this year, so it's a heck of a change.
And lots of people contacting us after all the spaces were full, asking if they could still get in, which is a good,
Yeah,
a good
it is,
position
it
to
is a
be in.
good thing, yes, yes. Okay, any other Parks and Rec? Right now, we're kind of on hold till we get good weather, but a couple small things we want to do, but nothing. Finance AC?
Melinda and I met with the auditor on Tuesday, maybe? It was earlier this week, and went over the financial report. The management's discussion and analysis got sent over to us yesterday, and we're reviewing that now. And so hopefully we'll have the financial report out to everybody, maybe by the end of the year, but if not, it'll be before next council meeting. But just going over real quick, it looks like everything was really good. So, good financial position and that the town is in. So, very positive.
And you're happy with the group we're dealing with, the new group?
Yeah.
Be probably easier next year after the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. Finance, I hate to say it, we got like 2-3 more months and we start the budget process again. Don't even think about that. Okay, personnel, let's do the board appointments, and then I'll turn the personnel manual amendment over to AC. And I know Clarence and AC have been talking a little bit about some possible changes to some things, so I'll kind of turn it over to AC and see what you guys have discussed.
All right, so to start with the board appointments, what I put in the memo, Sarah Showalter said she would be willing to serve a 4-year term on the Economic Development Authority. So if council would consider that. And Bradbury's term on the planning commission expired, and he has stated that he would be interested in serving a full 4-year term. He previously was appointed to finish an unexpired term. And then we have another vacancy now, Sarah Berry's vacancy, since she's been elected to council. That spot will be open, so we have to fill that on planning commission. And I know I've had one person express interest. Cecilia put it out on social media, asked anybody who was interested in serving in that capacity to submit a letter, resume type of document to the town. And so I received one yesterday, and what we'll do is I'll collect those probably through the end of the year and have them to council for the January meeting, and then council can consider anybody who's interested in that we can set up interviews. We've done that in the past where we interview candidates for
Great.
planning commission and see if they could be a good fit for the group. Qualifications and it's kind of an interesting process to go through, to trying to put together a group of people who might not necessarily know each other, and you hope that they can work together. And right now, I mean, we've had a great planning commission. The current planning commission has worked really well together. Some very good critical thinkers, and we always have somebody who pipes up and plays the devil's advocate. And so we try to get both sides of an issue, to look at both sides of the issue. So I think the planning commission does a really good job right now. So if we can find some good replacements for that.
Do we need a motion, separate motion for each?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to appoint Sarah Showalter back to the EDA, or reappoint her on the EDA.
Yes.
And then we'll need a separate motion for Brad Berry to appoint him to a full term on the planning commission. So if someone would like to make a couple motions, or start with one, and we'll work away to the other one.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Sarah Showalter to the EDA.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Go around the room, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we have one more motion.
I make a motion to reappoint Brad Berry to the planning commission.
Okay, do I have a
I'll
second? Okay, second. Any further discussion? Around the room.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you guys.
And we do have a few names floating or coming in for the other vacancy on the Economic Development Authority. People who may be interested in that. So we'll get those out at the same time. We can conduct business with Sarah being reappointed. We do have enough that we can conduct business of the EDA, so we'll get that meeting set up.
Okay.
Maybe after the first of the year, but
That'd be fine. That'd be fine. And I guess, we can announce your hire, can I figure it out now?
New hire will start on the 16th, will
Okay.
be his first day.
Awesome. So we're back to full staff for the moment. Okay, see, I'll turn the personnel manual amendment, Education Opportunities Tuition Assistance Program over to you. I know you and Clarence have been working on, I know he had some questions, and I'll turn it over to you two to discuss it a little bit.
sure. Clarence had some good
And
suggestions.
I'll get out of the way.
When I met with him earlier, and also had some suggestions from other council members too about things that should be changed. What we'll do is go down through, I should have printed off those for everybody. One of the things that Clarence brought up was about the how stringent we are with the grade that is required for reimbursement. A C is a passing undergraduate grade, so it had been a C in a much earlier version of the personnel manual, and then when it was revised, it was recommended to make it a B. But that would be a suggestion, would be to change that from a B to a C.
Do you want to take these changes as we go? How do we?
I'd rather just do it as an adoption of the whole document.
But
as
how
one.
will you know what to adopt on the changes? Oh, so I guess I'll make a motion that I agree with all the changes?
Right.
Okay.
Clarence and I talked about there's a line that says, applications will be accepted throughout the fiscal year and will be considered on a first come, first served basis. We talked about that a little bit, and Clarence, you jump in here anytime, and you're gonna be able to explain your thoughts better than I can, so.
Yeah, I think we should just take that out and it be, open to any employee that, as long as funds are available, we can divvy out, for everyone instead of whoever gets there first.
So if council allocates a certain amount of funding during the budgeting process, and one individual would come in and make a request that would use up all of that funding, if I'm saying this right, then what Clarence is saying is that everybody who puts an application in should be considered equally, instead of somebody who might get their application in first and take up all the funding, which leaves everybody else out in the,
Right.
without anything.
Well, but if they take up the funding, okay, just trying to work through this in my brain. So if they put the request in and it's approved and the funding is used for it, then it is there no more. So when somebody else comes in and requests it, if the funding is no longer there, then that almost sounds like a first come, first served.
Well, but the applications would be due by the first of the year, before we start the budget process.
Okay,
So coming into the budgeting process, we would know who's gonna be asking for,
okay.
who would be asking for assistance.
I guess it gives AC a little more leeway on deciding who gets what instead of, I got here first, so I get it all.
Right.
Okay.
So what would that line then change to? Applications will be accepted,
Throughout the fiscal year. Because there's,
but you said they're due by,
So it's a distinction between the application procedures, which is subparagraph D, and the decision guidelines, which are subparagraph E.
right?
So under the application procedures, we change it to it should be completed by January first, right? We want everyone to submit them. However, we understand that some people may not decide to take classes until the middle of the summer for the next fall, right?
Or what if a workshop or something else becomes available
Or there's
later
a
on?
seminar or something like that
Right.
later in the year, you couldn't have gotten it in by January
Right.
first. So we didn't wanna say that it must be submitted by January first, right? Because then you would lose out on a bunch of stuff. So that's the application procedures. Under the decision guidelines are, what are the instructions to the town manager on how he makes these decisions? As long as someone has followed the application procedures correctly,
Mhm.
then what's the basis for the decision?
And his basis is the town manager shall review and approve applications, guidelines, decisions, including but not limited to value, program, blah, 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 all the way down to number of applicants received. The application was received, number of applicants received, so he's gonna take that and just basically get rid of. I
So
mean,
just stop and get rid of that,
I mean,
that
you
last
just get
line.
rid of that last sentence altogether. It's gonna be received out to your period. Just get rid of that whole thing,
The whole last sentence
the
in
whole last sentence, yeah.
E1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've hired you to make these decisions, so. Okay, what else you got?
Instead of referring to things as course hour, this came from another council member, it just makes, maybe, it might just be semantics, but change it to credit hour. I think it may be a more commonly used term.
Okay.
It's just a wording. I had left that one space in there for no more than a certain number of courses may be approved during one fiscal year per employee. And Clarence and I were talking about that. What did we ultimately decide, or what was
To
your?
do a set dollar amount versus courses because of the different costs of the courses. You can take a bunch of 1-hour credit courses,
Depending on the institution.
Correct.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
so I think a dollar amount would be better.
Okay.
I agree. I had the very same notes when I was looking through this earlier today. Section F, numbers 2 and 3, I thought about just get rid of, or combining them and saying just a set dollar amount versus, course credit hours. Because, again, I pulled up JMU's just to look at how much it costs per credit hour and whether you're undergraduate or graduate or especially graduate or something like that. I mean, it runs the gamut, all kinds of costs, but yeah, I say $1 amount.
The other thing is if you're saying number of courses, if you're doing any type of training type program, it may not be, I mean, it could be a 3-day
Right.
seminar, is that one course, or is that
Right.
every session within the seminar counts as a course? You know, it's,
Can I throw $1 amount out there and see what people think? Is that appropriate at this point?
Yeah, we can, in our budgeting process, that's how we do it. We got a number, we see if it floats or sinks, and we start again if it doesn't.
I was thinking, 5,000 per fiscal year,
5,000 per person per fiscal year?
yes,
Okay,
That
that's
was my
the
thoughts.
max they can receive.
that was my
And then
thought.
that's based on the budget. If we have a
Right.
budget where we only can budget 7,500, then it limits.
Well, and we have, I think there's wording in there that says, as funds are available too. So if council only allocates a certain,
Right.
if you have a lean year and council only allocates a certain amount of funding
Okay,
in the budget for that, then
so
it would be
you're saying
what's
a
available.
maximum of 5,000 per year.
That was my thoughts, and then, you know, depending on how the budget is working itself out, or if you don't have anybody else within that fiscal year who's using that money, there's extra, then I
Okay.
guess we can always look at it as a special situation or something like that, but that was just my thought to put
Okay.
into the handbook.
Clarence, what do you say?
Yeah, I think the same, about 5,000.
Ned?
What's a credit hour brother these days?
Well, I looked at JMU just because it's a state school, and for an undergraduate course, it was $256 per credit, and most courses are at least 3 credits. And then if you're looking at a graduate level, just for a regular, non-specialty graduate, it was $529 per credit hour. And again, there's usually a normal class is usually at least 3 credits. Those are for, non-full-time students who are just taken per credit hour. So when I added that up, one class for an undergraduate would be about $768, which doesn't include books and things like that. Or if it's a graduate level course, it would be $1,587 per class if it's a 3-credit course. So if you
So you're saying you
allotted
take 2 classes?
well, if
per
you
year.
allotted 5,000 per year, I mean, you could take, what, 2 per semester maybe?
You said how much?
Or
how much was it
more
per-
if
how
it's an
much was it per-
undergraduate
How much was
course.
it per credit? 250?
256 per credit. And this is, like I said, just JMU. They also offer like a one-time financial.
So that gives
$100
you the
off.
ability to take roughly 20 credits per year. I mean, 250 just in round math, 10 is 2,500, 20 is 5,000, so it's roughly, I mean, I'm leaving the sixes off, but it roughly gives you,
So that was just the thought. They could take several courses.
okay?
And the different schools have different tuition rates too, so it's, some may,
And if it's a private school versus public school or something like that, but that would be the person's choice of where they're taking.
Is that 5,000 per person or per?
per person per
Per-
year.
Per person, per fiscal
Based on the
year.
budget,
That
though.
was my thought.
And if there's monies available, you may have 15,000 in the budget. If there's not money, you may have less. So it depends on how we run our budget, how much we can put in there. So what do you think, Ned?
That sounds good.
Natalie?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
A yes. Okay, so
Oh, sorry, clarification. Is this just for the course? Does it include books or any peripherals?
it's the money they have.
Just the.
Is it
okay.
tuition reimbursement or is it cost of attending the program?
it's tuition assistance program, so it's just
Okay,
tuition
just
reimbursement.
Yeah, the way it's worded, it says when approved, tuition assistance will pay or reimburse up to 100% of the cost of tuition, registration, and required laboratory fees. I mean, it doesn't specifically say books, but, and then it says the payment shall not exceed, this says 500 per course hour.
It'll basically be
I
five.
think
We
It'd
can
be
eliminate
we
that
can
sentence,
eliminate that
right?
sentence, yes.
And then combine with the next one saying then no more than $5,000 per fiscal
Okay.
year per employee. Does that
Okay.
sound appropriate? Does that answer the question to what you're saying?
Did you hear that one, that? Sounds right here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay. I got you. I'm good.
Do you know if JMU's, since that was the basis, is that pretty standard throughout the state? Like, I mean, I know there's a huge difference between private and public and stuff,
I
but
don't
is
know.
there kind of like an average that you would say in the state of Virginia?
I would say they're fairly close.
Fairly close. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
JMU is probably a good average.
Is it a good average.
Yeah.
Huh? Making a motion on this. Okay, what else we got? Any other changes?
I think that was everything that,
Okay, so,
Stephanie, steal your thunder.
so far, the changes that we discussed were B to a C, eliminating applications to accept throughout the fiscal year, that whole line. Getting rid of payment shall not exceed 500 per credit hour, that line, and changing the number 3 to say basically 5,000 per employee per year. And that's the only changes we've made so far. And then I guess on the next one, on the next page, it mentions that B again in AC. Authorize
Yeah,
the
we
town
can, yeah.
and change that one to C. So anyone have any questions about the amendments to this right now? Are we in favor? Everyone, I'll kind of get a head shake. Everyone seems to be in favor of all the amendments, the changes to amendment?
And let me say this, so all of this is in the employee handbook. So this is really up to AC to make these decisions, but it's, financial. So that's why he said he wants to bring it to council and get a vote on these things. So it's not like an ordinance where we need to have the wording exactly right. It's really about consensus about, the way that
The flavor of
the way that it's worded.
Okay.
On each one of these things. So it doesn't have to be exactly precise for this. It's really giving him the guidance to then make the changes to the handbook.
Okay. So I guess we are ready for a motion, I guess. Okay. Clarence, you were the one?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion.
To adopt
Adopt the-
amend the employee handbook to modify the tuition assistance program
That's exactly what Clarence
as
said.
discussed.
That's exactly what Clarence said.
As discussed.
Good job, Clarence. Debbie, you still seconding?
I second.
Any further discussion? Okay, go around the room.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Good
all
job.
right, thank you all.
This is like the longest meeting we've had in a very long time. Museum. Oh, where's your dad today?
He was at a basketball game.
Okay. Sharon?
Last month, we had 184 visitors. The yard sale made over $1,000. Upcoming programs, January 22nd, Pat Turner will be speaking, and February 26th will be our appraisal fair.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good one.
We'll move down to other business. Council, anything else to bring up at this time? I will say, this is Ned and Natalie's official last meeting. You're not done with council for a couple more days, but thanks for all you've done. You've definitely made us think of different things that I don't think the council would have thought about. You looked at the town in different eyes, and I appreciate that. Because I know some things that you've brought to the council that I would never have thought of. So thank you very much for that, guys. Anything else? Okay, and I guess at some point we'll give a formal.
Sarah's out there too, so. She'll be sitting up here next month.
Oh, I said something last month to her.
Okay.
Yeah, she's still good. I congratulate her. Okay, any public comment? Anybody? Then thank you, everybody, and meeting is adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Mary, oh, I forgot to say that.
That's right.